How often do you see naked skin in public? And is your reaction to each kind of naked skin similar and or same? I already touched this topic briefly in my previous video of sex education playlist, and that video was about breasts, if I'm not mistaken. But again, how is naked skin considered or looked upon in our society? How does society think about naked skin? How do we think about it? And what does law think about it? More about it, naked skin, in a moment. But obviously, before we begin, I have to tell you that this is Yury Experience, and here I share my various experiences about different topics. I do 2 videos a week, Mondays and Thursdays. If you will enjoy this video, please drop a like. You can also subscribe to the channel. Let's start. We begin with morals and we'll go to laws afterwards. So, how much naked skin is morally appropriate? How much is okay? How much does society think is okay? At the end of the day, the answer depends highly on the culture of the location where you see the skin, or on the location of people, or the culture of people with whom you are talking about this topic. Maybe these people are from conservative locations, conservative cities, conservative countries, and their view on what amount of naked skin is appropriate and what amount of the skin is not appropriate is really like no naked skin. Nowhere. No naked skin. Or maybe that person comes from the culture where naked skin wasn't something special. It wasn't something really strange. You could see it everywhere on the streets and all around, like the location where that person lived, and for everybody it was completely okay. Then for that person, naked skin isn't something special. It is just like, it is normal, and if it is normal, then you don't really pay attention to it, so you don't think that it is not appropriate. Except for cultural backgrounds, the location where you see naked skin is also very important. And here I'm not speaking about culture, but more about how high is the probability, or how high can be your expectations to see naked skin in that specific location. Let me give you 2 examples. First example is beach. And if you don't expect to see quite an amount of naked skin on a beach, then I'm not sure what do you think about a beach. Or maybe you are coming from the country where there are no warm beaches, but normally, for most of people, it is quite common to become almost completely undressed or almost completely nude on beaches and enjoy their time, sunbaths and maybe swim around. Obviously there are exceptions in some cultures and some countries, but overall beach is a more or less common place to see quite a lot of naked skin. Doesn't matter on gender, sex, and whatever you want. On the other hand, in a restaurant, especially in like some high-end classy restaurant, you wouldn't expect to see so much of a naked skin. Maybe some amount, especially if a person is a woman and that person wears a dress. There are a lot of occasions there are like naked arms and maybe some cleavage, but overall that's almost it. There are some more additions which you could make, but overall it's almost it. And you probably wouldn't expect a person to come there with their chest completely free, independent of the fact whether that person is a woman or is a man. It is just not common. It is not something that you would expect to see there, which is why if you will see it there, it would probably bother you. And that is where some opinion comes into place. It is something that some people suggest to other people, what they shall do. And it is, if it bothers you, then maybe don't look. So overall, if that person shows way too much naked skin, then maybe you should just ignore it instead of keeping boiling to you and maybe going into that person like, how dare you, and whatnot. In my personal opinion, this suggestion doesn't work every time. At the end of the day, if the location is a location where you wouldn't expect to see naked skin, then probably you shall not show naked skin in there. On the other hand, if it is a location where it is expectable to see naked skin and it bothers you, then maybe you are a problem and not the person that shows naked skin. And in addition to that, we have breastfeeding, which is completely fine and okay and legal in a lot of locations and in a lot of places, but it is still something that is out of the usual. It is still something that is not common, and in some cultures it is like bad stuff to see a person breastfeeding. I mean, seeing a breast during breastfeeding process is something very bad. There I would also agree, if it bothers you, but the location where you are at allows it, you are a problem. Overall, if it bothers you, probably it is you who are a problem anyway if it comes to breastfeeding, because it is a natural process which happens, you know. But I can understand that depending on the culture, your opinion and how much it triggers you would be different, which is why I will not go on to you, you do you, but at the end of the day, if the location allows it, basically you can do anything about it, and maybe you shall not do anything about it. In the end of this block of the video, I have to tell you, naked skin is overly sexualized, and it doesn't matter whether we are talking about men or women, because all of the naked skin is sexualized. But depending on whom you will ask, parts that are sexualized are different for each person. I have already heard from a lot of women that they find forearms attractive. Like they like when arm of a person is big, so they find it sexy. On the other hand, if a t-shirt of a woman is like cut down a little bit lower, a lot of men will find it sexy, or maybe when the shorts are a little bit on the shorter side. Again, it depends on the man and depends on what person is wearing that t-shirt or that shorts, but overall, again, men have their preferences in terms of naked skin and what naked skin is sexy or arousally, however, I'm not sure how to call it. But it is true, completely nakedness in a lot of cultures is something that we connect with sexy, with attractive, and not with common. Again, culture from culture is different, but in Europe, USA, in Russia, no. Skin is sexy. Maybe not every skin, but overall the idea is going in that direction. Now we will briefly talk about law side of the matter. What does law think about nudeness, nakedness, especially not in your own home, but somewhere outside? And there we have this cool phrase, indecent exposure. Yeah. And the idea is following: you are not allowed to be nude everywhere, like at every location, but whenever, wherever you want. And you are not allowed to do anything with your naked body at each location. And at the end of the day, most of the rules can be narrowed down to: place is important, amount of naked skin is important, and intent behind being nude is important. Most of the stuff does make sense, depends obviously heavily on the country, and place, I already mentioned it. Depending on the location, it is expected or not expected to see naked skin, and based on that, it is allowed sometimes, not always, depends on the country, but it is allowed or not allowed to be naked or nude or be partially naked in that location. Amount of naked skin is also more about how much of nakedness can you show in that specific location, but also there are some regions of the body which are usually prohibited from showing. For example, normally it is not allowed to show this like intimate area, both sides of it, pretty much everywhere. There are exceptions and there are specific locations where you can do it, but overall you cannot go on the streets with like swinging your penis around or like showing your vagina. It doesn't work. It can work, but it is prohibited and people can sue you for that. So it's like disturbing public order. The interesting thing was intent. So depending on why are you naked, Police can do something to you or will not do something to you. So basically, if your intent of being naked in the public area is sexual or maybe harassing somebody, then police can do something about it. But if you are just walking around and you are naked and you don't do anything with anybody and you don't talk with anybody, so basically you are just doing your thing, then again, depending on the country, situation may be and is different. In some countries it is allowed to be naked or nude also in public spaces like parks and whatnot, as long as you don't harass anybody actively or you don't try like to be very sexy to somebody, like going to some dad with a child and like, whoa, do you want to do something? I don't know. And I think it is a very, very smart thing to create this distinction between being naked just because we feel like it and being naked and being a threat. Obviously, threat is not the best word to use in these cases, because threat is really broad, wide word, a word with a big range of meanings. But at the end of the day, if you can justify your reason for being naked and it is allowed to be naked in that location, you can do it. Yes, culture can go against it, but in terms of law, you can do it. And I think it is a good step in a good direction. And it is good that law thinks about it. Not all the nakedness is bad, but nakedness, when it is used as a weapon, if you want to, is bad. And I think it's a good way of thinking. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed it. If it is the case, please drop a like. You can also subscribe to the channel. Except for that, I see you on Thursday. Have a great week.